Welcome back to the channel. My name is Todd Jewell, and it is once again time for a market update, this time for the month of April. So let's jump right in. To begin with, I want to make sure that I define where this data comes from. So this was pulled this morning. This is May 1st. I have pulled this early this morning just out of the MLS system. It represents single family homes in Knox County. There's no land involved in these numbers or anything that could skew them. I think that's the best representation of what's going on here in the housing market in Knoxville. Now, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. We do these every month. I think it's one of the more important things we do for most of you who are considering seriously moving to this area so you can keep up with the markets. What we're seeing is somewhat what we expected. We're going to begin with average days on market. Average days on market is very simply what it sounds like. It's how many days a home sits on the market on average from the day it's listed until the day it goes pending. In the month of April is 42.3 days. Now, that's up just slightly. It's almost flat from March, where it was 41.8 days. If we look year over year, remember with data, it's about trends and direction. If we look at 34.5 days on average back in April of 2024. I said in the last video, average days on market does a really poor job of representing what's going on here in Knoxville. If you're out in this market every day, you understand that. We have a lot of homes in desirable areas that hit the market and go very quickly. If you're watching the market, like many of you are, you're seeing that. Then we have a lot of homes that are overpriced, that need updated, and the price doesn't match the condition, you name it, but they're put on the market by sellers who assume they can just put it on the market and it's going to sell like it did maybe 2 years ago, and it just sits and it skews the averages. Started pulling last month median days on market. What does that mean? It means that 50% of the homes sold above this number on days on market, but 50% sold below this number. And I think this is a better indicator of how the Knoxville market is actually operating. If we look at the median days on market in Knox County, it's 13 for the month of April. So that means that 50% of the homes that were listed in 13 or less days, in less than 13 days really. If we look at median days on market year over year, April of 24, 9 days on market was the median. A year ago, at this time, 50% of the homes were selling in 9 days or less. And so that is an increase, but it still shows that homes are selling, if they're priced properly and they're in good condition in the right locations, they're selling very quickly here in the Knoxville market. Now let's look at sold to original list price. What that means is simply this. Put a home on for $200,000. What percent of that does it sell for when it closes? And that number is 96.9%. If you're looking at the market and you're seeing these price reductions and you're saying, hey, we're going to make an offer, we're going to make it 15% less, that's just not realistic in this market at the moment. If someone's willing to sell the homes that go under contract are selling for almost 97% of the list price at the time. Absorption rate is a big one. I usually save to the end, but I'm going to talk about it now, and then I'm going to come back to it. One of the things about absorption rate is if we have no more homes listed today, how long is it basically going to take to sell out of inventory? That number for April was 2.37. That number for March was 2.13. You are seeing a slight increase again. That number back last April was 1.61. Now, just to put that in perspective, that number needs to be 4 for a healthy market. We are still in a seller's market here in Knoxville if it's priced properly, and our absorption rate still shows a seller's market. So that number is improving slowly. So if you're in the buying market, hopefully that means things are going to get a little bit better. But at the same time, we're still way below where we need to be for it to be a nice, comfortable market for buyers. Let's look at listings. We're going to look at 3 categories. Active listings, which means, and that's where we're going to start, how many homes were actively listed for sale at the end of April, and that number is 1,452. That means nothing without perspective. So if we look back in March, a month ago, that number was 1,306. So we see an increase of about 140 to 45 homes on the market in all of Knox County. It's a small amount of difference, but it is a difference, and it is continuing to slowly grow. If we look at year over year, we see some good increase. Last April, we only saw 933 homes on the market, which is just horribly low number for Knox County. We're seeing buyers kind of sit a little bit more on the the sideline or be more picky. They're a little more fearful of the economy right now and some of the uncertainty that's going on and some of the things that are in the news cycle. Consumer sentiment has dropped, which always means that buyers kind of sit on the sideline a little bit longer or a little more picky. That's some of it, is just very simply that. And then some of it is that we still have a lot of sellers who are unrealistic, as I said, about what they're asking for their home in its current condition and location. And because of that, those homes are sitting a little longer and allowing inventory to grow. The combination, it's not a huge jump, but it is a jump. If we look at how many homes were newly listed for sale during the month of April, new listings, there were 935. If we compare that to March of this same year, it was 924. So basically it was flat. We saw 11 more listings in April than we did in March. We didn't see that huge jump that we were hoping that we would see. Maybe we'll see more of them hit the market, new listings in May. Some of that's for the same reasons, like I said, about the economy and these other things. People get they kind of hunker down a little bit more till they know what's going on. What we did see is the same amount of listings, and we saw the total number of active listings grow. And that tells you that, like I said, one of two things is happening. Either the homes are just sitting a little bit longer, which I think is a little of it, and then two, it depends on, I think we still have sellers who are not being as realistic and understanding the market, or their listing agents aren't educating them in the market enough that they can make a good informed decision. And so we're just seeing those homes sit. So the number of sold listings will actually grow over the course of the next week, but that number today is 454. We could see that number get halfway up to 500 or better, or even closer to 500, but it's still a significant drop because in March we saw 655 closings. If we compare that over last April, we see that same significant drop. It was 660. To me, that's the most significant number that we're seeing, is that number of closed sales drop. So we'll have to see if that continues into next month at the end of May and see if that is the beginning of a trend, saying that we are really going to see more buyers sitting on the sidelines and maybe seeing inventory grow. Don't know yet. We're about to hit the time of year where a lot of people want to move because they want their kids to leave where they are in school, move over summer break, get back in school here, and not have to come in mid-year, whatever. So we normally see a pretty big increase May, June, especially in certain school zones and areas as people relocate, and they do that during a certain period of time for their kids. So we're going to have to see where that ends up at. How does all that equate to pricing? Well, the median sold price, 50% sold above, 50% sold below. In April, this was $399,900. That number in March was $390,000. That number actually dropped over last month's video as they input more data a little bit. So, we saw about, it was flat almost, maybe 2.5% increase month over month. But what we saw is about a 6.64% increase year over year, because last April that number was 375. So we have seen home prices not start to drop and get back below year over year. We're still up about 6.5% year over year in home prices here in Knox County. All those numbers, and that being said, a little bit of perspective from inside the business. I think anytime, one of the best indicators of what's going to go on in the housing market is consumer sentiment. If you look at that number and it continues to drop, if that's the case, then there may be a buying opportunity coming up for those of you who are looking to move and who are able to do. My hope is, since we represent a lot of buyers, is that we do see inventory continue to grow to make it a little easier for you guys to find a home. At the same time, there are parts of the country right now in all the information I'm reading that say it's a lot slower. And in working with a lot of you, we have quite a few folks right now who are having trouble selling their homes, or more trouble than they thought they would, where they're coming from. I do see across the country a cooling of the housing market a little bit. Knoxville in particular seems to be a little more insulated than a lot of parts of the country, but at the same time, the sold listings in this month indicate to me that even here we are seeing, and those areas are having effects for people who do want to move here. So we'll see what next month brings. Hopefully we'll see inventory continue to grow a little bit. We'll see pricing flatten out and affordability improve over time. If you haven't subscribed, as I said earlier, please do so. Thumbs up if you enjoy these videos. Comments are welcome. Questions are welcome. Below, we try to reach out. I do and answer each one of those. And until next time, guys, I can't wait to see you around Knoxville soon.